Muy buenos días a todos los miembros de la mesa directiva, señoras y señores. La declaración de nuestro país, Barbados. En 2003, los gabinetes de Barbados acordaron formalmente tener una política comprensiva para manejo de riesgos y desastres que implique a toda la sociedad en todas las etapas de la administración de los desastres y los riesgos. Esta estrategia, por lo tanto, es reducir el riesgo y las pérdidas atribuidas tanto a los actos naturales o peligros naturales y que para poder mejorar el desarrollo sostenible. Esto estableció las bases para poder reducir los riesgos de desastres en un programa internacional que hasta entonces tenía un mandato que estaba más bien favoreciendo solamente la respuesta y el alivio de las amenazas meteorológicas. La adopción del Plan de Acción de Hyogo por parte del gobierno de Barbados en el 2005, por lo tanto, complementó lo que había ya empezado el país en el 2003 y pudo garantizar el compromiso del gobierno para la construcción de la resiliencia nacional en estos últimos años a través del desarrollo de las políticas y de la legislación que está fundada en el principio del manejo.
Aligned with the 5 priorities for action of the Hyogo Framework for Action, Barbados continues to implement programs and projects aimed at lessening the country's disaster threats. These include community involvement and a robust public awareness and education program. During the last 9 years of implementation of the Hyogo Framework of Action, Barbados can boast success in the implementation of activities under each of the 5 priorities of action. Under Priority 1, for example, Barbados has adopted legislation to support disaster risk reduction that encourage compliance and that promote incentives for undertaking risk reduction and mitigation activities. It has also recognized the importance and specificity of local risk patterns and trends, and decentralized responsibilities and resources for disaster risk reduction to relevant subnational or local authorities as appropriate. In 2006, the Comprehensive Disaster Management Policy was given legislative authority with the enactment of the Emergency Management Act, Cap 168. 8 years later, as further evidence of Barbados' resolve to reduce its vulnerability to disasters and its desire to better implement disaster risk reduction measures, recommendations were made for the amendment of specific areas of the Emergency Management Act and the development of accompanying regulations to further strengthen its authority. These recommendations were compiled as the result of focused group discussions with stakeholders from a cross-section of sectors. These recommendations were lodged with the Emergency Management Advisory Council in March of this year for the Council's review and verification. Upon the Council's agreement and subsequent endorsement of the recommendations, the Act will be submitted to the Cabinet for approval before submitting the matter to the Office of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel for drafting. Under Priority for Action 3, Barbados has, among other things, promoted community-based training initiatives considering the role of volunteers as appropriate to enhance local capacities to mitigate and cope with disasters. The government of Barbados recognizes the pivotal role of community-level involvement in disaster risk reduction. It further acknowledges that community participation in disaster risk reduction, planning and implementation needs to be formalized. Our communities must be educated on and prepared to react promptly to save lives, alleviate suffering, and protect property and livelihoods if adversely threatened by natural or man-made hazards. The government of Barbados is therefore in the process of restructuring the present Community Emergency Response Program with a view to implementing a governance structure to provide administrative and operational oversight to the program. A community management unit dedicated to the implementation and functioning of the Community Emergency Management Program will also be established. The adoption of the Hyogo Framework for Action in 2005 has allowed Barbados to focus its attention on the enactment and implementation of policy and legislation aimed at reducing the country's disaster risk. This has also enabled Barbados to effectively continue to identify, assess, and monitor disaster risk while educating the general population on their vulnerabilities using all available technologies. On April 30th of this year, Barbados hosted a national consultation to document its priorities and perspectives on the proposed elements of the post-2015 Disaster Risk Reduction Framework. The consultation agreed that the proposed new outcome statement, secure, healthy, wealthy, and resilient nations and communities, was not an improvement on the previous one. It is felt that such a goal will lead to problems with monitoring and evaluation of programs. Such an ambitious outcome should be linked to sustainable goals, and to this end, it is our belief that the prior outcome remains relevant. Thank you.